So if you're an entrepreneur who's been growing a lot lately, but like as you grow, it just feels more and more hollow, maybe starting to ask that question, like, what was this all for? There's some reasons for that. So in this video, I'm going to break down the three main reasons why you're feeling that way. I'm also going to give you a little tool to potentially help you diagnose one of those things as well. So I personally experienced this about 4 years ago. I was in the digital marketing world. Our agency had gone from several $100,000 a year to past $1 million a year, and I was just burning out. And I was like, is this all there is? Is this what success truly is? Like me hating my life? Um, but there were reasons below the surface that I just simply wasn't paying attention to, and I was the problem. So I am not here to say you're broken or, all that sort of stuff. I'm saying you are the problem, but these are easily fixable, and these three reasons are going to help you. But if we've just met, my name is Colby. I now work one-on-one with amazing leaders, entrepreneurs, executives to basically do three things. I make space for them. So I create a room where they can tell the full truth. I ask them really difficult questions that they're afraid to ask themselves. And then that I hold them accountable to the answers. So I have found everybody's already got the answers inside their head. They just need that little extra push to actually execute on those things, right? And that comes from a place of truth. And in answering those things, what do you get? You get everything you want. You get the fun, you get the freedom, you get the bank account, all that good stuff. So let's dive into the first reason that success may feel hollow. And this one may kind of shock you because you're probably doing this every day and you're not even really noticing it. So as a busy person and someone who always wants to stay ahead of the game, and you've got this ambition, right? What you tend to do, and you're probably aware of this and people have like beat you up for it, is you scroll, right? You get on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it may be, but it's not scrolling that's the problem. In fact, I'm going to do a different video on why people telling you to delete your apps and all that sort of stuff is just nonsense, and talk about what you can do instead. So stay tuned for that. If you like what you're hearing, by all means, subscribe, and you'll get that in your inbox. But the reality is, just put it down to one word. Well, one term, let's call it. What we're talking about is passive consumption. What do I mean by this? Essentially, like in my lifetime, I'm 36. We've gone from pre-internet to freaking computer labs to dial-up to Wi-Fi to smartphones to endless access, right? Like the trajectory of what you can consume has honestly just been freaking insane. And so when you're getting bombarded with all this sort of stuff, the problem with like the doom scrolling or just like having people we're inspired by is we're getting so many opinions thrown at us. Like the human body cannot keep up with that level of speed, right? It's just not healthy. And so instead of saying don't do it, I would have you look at every single person you follow. The average person follows well into the hundreds of people. I think it's something like over 200 to 300 people. Many people follow like 500 plus. I used to follow, I'm a football supporter. I like Chelsea Football Club. I used to follow every single player and all that sort of stuff. And then you realize they're all just saying the same thing anyway. But that's kind of where the first thing comes in is, what is a tactical thing you can do to combat this just bombardment of opinions? Why do things feel hollow? Is because you're getting talked at all the time. And so you need that information to serve you. If it's not serving you, it's harming you, essentially. And so my filter for this is go through every single person you're following and all this. Like if you're on the explore page and all that kind of stuff and you're just swiping, you might be a little further gone and this might be difficult. But if you go into your actual people you follow and just look at them through this filter of, are they bringing value? Am I learning something, or am I just being entertained? Right? And if it doesn't do either of those things, really eliminate them. But I would have you, if you're going to keep a large follower list, there's a lot to be said for having less and just following fewer influences and really doubling down on the people who you're just truly into versus people who are just mildly interesting or even, useful in some cases. You can't make use out of every single thing you learn. Is I would have you completely eliminate if they don't give you entertainment or value. They got to go and reduce that. If they only give you entertainment, if it's me, I'm reducing those people as well. I'm really looking for the main influences in a highly connected world to be valuable, and you can do the same. And in so doing, what have you done? You've turned passive consumption into active consumption. And just by having intent with who you're following and what value they're bringing to your freaking brain, it's receiving these things, you're in a much better camp. You're in a much healthier camp. Hollowness comes from just like not knowing who you are. So if you run it through the filter of this person is giving me value, as in like I know what I need and want rather than just receive everything, you're actually starting to know who you are a lot more, and then you're in a much better place. And by the way, if you have tried the whole like deleting apps thing and, putting your phone in another room and all that sort of stuff, and you just keep going back to it, that's just a level of consumption that I found probably is going straight to a solution. But if the solution doesn't actually work, then it's not solving the wrong problem or not solving the right problem. And so I've created this little tiny GPT, something that just asks you a few questions. I call it the consumption doctor. You can find that totally free down below. And what it'll do is it will assign you a role and what you can do about it with given your varying level of consumption. The average American is on social media over 2 hours a day, and they're on their phone over 5 hours a day, and they pick up their phone over 200 times a day, right? So there's a lot more going on than just I'm addicted, right? It's much more, there's much more of a deeper root than that. So if you just want to kind of diagnose yourself, fun little thing, totally free, find it in the description below. Now, on to point number 2. Why do you feel hollow with this success? Well, I think this next one just honestly isn't spoken about enough. So this is not going to be any sort of solution so much as it is identification. And I think if you can just identify it, you're going to feel better almost immediately. So let me actually take you to like what my normal life is. Maybe you don't have kids, but I have a 5-year-old. Even had it just this morning where I had to talk to him. One of the hills my 5-year-old is absolutely dying on right now is he needs to be right. Has to be right? And will absolutely kind of sacrifice personal happiness for the sake of just winning the argument. This is my interpretation of how he behaves, but I think that is really rooted in he does not like looking stupid in front of people. He's actually he's ridiculously intelligent and all that sort of stuff, and he expresses himself a lot, but the moment you put him into where he might need to be performative in front of people or where he might need to get a little bit of vulnerability going on, he kind of shies away from it, and that's where he kind of latches on to me and says, you do it, right? That kind of stuff. When it's just me, right, we're arguing and he always has to be right. But what is the reason for this? And this is the identification, is basically, and I'm going to go to my note cards again here, is that basically I heard somewhere, and maybe you've heard this too, is that it is easy to grow old. It is hard to grow up. And you find that so many people are kind of still stuck in toddler adolescence, sometimes at the best, like they're still in high school and all that kind of stuff. And I talk to so many entrepreneurs who are insanely talented to where I'm like, how am I even in the room with some of these people? And the reason I am is because they're just really afraid of looking stupid. And so I think in many cases, they come to someone like me and are seeking permission to look stupid. So we don't have to work together for me to tell you how this works, right? You know that you are trying to reach towards your potential, right? You have this ambition, the level of success you've achieved. Maybe it feels a little bit hollow because it's not totally aligned with you, but many times it feels hollow because that's the level of success you're able to achieve, more or less playing it safe by taking a risk here or there, but nothing like catastrophically like, oh my gosh, if this doesn't work, I'm going to be laughed off of my industry and that kind of stuff. Most people don't do that. And so picture this visual in your head of you're climbing up a staircase, right? Whatever level you're at right now, there's plenty of stairs below you. You had to step over those one at a time to get to where you are now. But the reward for going up to your next level, same as it was before, and you survived, so congratulations, you know how this works. Like I said, you know all the answers already, right? Is going up to the next level, the reward for that at first is not more success. It's looking stupid. It is looking stupid. It's being misunderstood. It is failing. And this is something I used to, I see a primary role as like hiring as an example. When I had staff at the agency, I would encourage them to just fail as quickly and as often as possible. Because failure is evidence. Failure is something you can rule out. I want a bunch of little Thomas Edisons to be like, I am seeking the failure because then that is evidence of something I don't need to use in the future, right? Yet so many people are limiting themselves to, if I go up another level, which I want to do that without looking stupid. It's just not going to happen, right? And you may feel like you're making progress. I'm not talking about revenue growth. I'm not talking about company size or profit or quarterlies. I could care less about that sort of stuff. I mean, like, you as a human being looking at your progression and saying, man, I freaking went for it. And so if this is like hitting you between the eyes and you're resonating with this a little bit, it's probably because there's a bit of truth in it. And so my challenge to you, because you are an ambitious person, is, can you imagine how far you would go if you weren't afraid? Because you've already hit success as someone who's like afraid of looking stupid. Can you imagine how high you can get if you eliminated that fear of other people talking about you in a way you don't love? Like, who cares? Anytime you make a decision and can do something, the world gets to react to it. They're entitled to do that, right? But their reaction should have next to no bearing at all on whether you decide to hit your potential or not. And the reward for that is looking really freaking stupid. So embrace it. And in so doing, what are you doing? You're growing up. It is easy to grow old. It is easy to put one foot in front of the other. It is hard to grow up. It is hard to take massive leaps. It is hard to take risks. I want you to grow up. Point 3, I kind of saved to the end because if you're, people who are really not interested in solving this problem, they would have gotten uncomfortable a long time ago and clicked off of this video. So if you're still here, congratulations, you're a real one, right? This main one is something you'll probably feel, or this final one is something you'll probably feel really deeply. It's another identification, is you're in emotional debt. That's just fact, right? So what are we talking about with emotional debt? All right, so we all have those friends from high school, college, whatever, who, much kind of like the last point, they might not be 5-year-olds still, but they're still solving the same problems that they were back in college. They are still going to the same places. They're still talking about the same stuff. They're still doing the same things. And they are not the person who is going up on the ladder, right? Whatever their level is right now, that's the one they're going to stay. And little sidebar, if you're the one who's going up in levels, just keep in mind, not everybody's going to want to come with you. The majority of them are not, right? But there's nothing wrong with these people. They just don't understand us. The more and more you grow, the more successful you become, the less non-ambitious people are going to understand that, all right? And so the more you attach yourself to them, trying to make them understand or to continue to talk about the same old stuff and carry on with the same old problems and gossip about the same old people, all you're signing up for is to stay at that level, which you and I both know you don't want. So that's emotional debt. You are putting energy into something that you actually have no interest in retaining. So how do we go from emotional debt? Leaves us very sad. I'm going to suggest you get an ambition partner. Now, the difficulty with this, obviously, is you look out at the market, right? There is therapy, and therapists are very good at the emotional side. But something that they do is they're dwelling in the past. They're really just diagnosing what happened in your childhood, what happened at this time. Did you break off with your partner, blah, 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 right? And they are just constantly kind of in this state of going backwards, which is really difficult for an ambitious person, because that's really important and that can absolutely inform the future. But the polar opposite of that is that you get a business coach, right? And the business coach just lives in the numbers. They need to look good as well. And so all they truly care about is, I don't want to reduce business coaching down to this because it's definitely not that, but there is a whole sector of business coaches that if you really look at their behavior, they are really only there for like, can I get a screenshot of your freaking, monthly like revenue spike so I can put it on my case study, that sort of stuff. In many cases, if you try and connect emotionally with that person, and we're talking about emotional debt here, they're going to have so many of their own problems. They are going to be expert compartmentalizers where they only speak about the business, and speaking about your emotional side of the business, like signing up to get kicked in the shins over and over again. They might empathize with you, but they got their own problems. They don't want any of that, right? And so therapy dwells on the past and really doesn't have any business acumen to help you continue with your ambition. The business coach has the business acumen to help you grow, but they're not talking about the human being, the fundamental side. Like, as you grow, do you even freaking want that? Do you like the person you're going to become on the other side? And so what I'm describing to you as an ambition partner is incredibly freaking rare. Okay. It is not easy to find. These people, and I would consider myself in a part of this group, in a small minority, are obsessed with the number one asset of growing the business, which is you. Now, I'm not talking about personal development, woo-woo shit like, Atomic Habits and all that sort of stuff, which is amazing, by the way. I'm not saying Atomic Habits is bad, but just like stealing other people's doctrine and giving you a bunch of motivational quotes and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that at all. Basically, you're looking for someone who can be emotionally available to objectively one of the hardest things you will ever do, which is grow a business and understand the business side. So in a perfect world, you have someone who has been exactly where you want to go, who now has the purpose and drive and conviction to help someone exactly like you, right? The closest thing to this is mentorship. But I say ambition partner because they still need to have this understanding of your ambition is going to be slightly different than theirs, right? A lot of the problems with the business coaching world is you're grabbing the system that coach was successful in, right? Ask any coach and they will tell you that the one way to grow your business is however which way that they grew their business, right? Whereas a mentor or an ambition partner is someone who's going to be a lot more interested in you as a human being, as the holistic, right? Something I'm fascinated with is like how my clients' kids are doing, what their relationship with their partner is. Does their partner understand their ambition? A lot of people get married to polar opposites, and that's a whole different thing to manage when you are trying to grow something. When you have this obsession and delusion and no one understands why the hell you're doing what you're doing, right? Remember, when you go up to the next level, not only are you going to look stupid, a bunch of people are going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Right? Because only you're going to understand. But to put you in a room with somebody who does understand those things, who accepts you for what you are, who you feel very safe in telling the truth to. The reality is, and this is a common thing, entrepreneurship is very lonely. And it's not lonely because you're not surrounded by people. You're absolutely flooded with people, way more than somebody who like works at a corporate job. The downside is that it's the understanding, it's emotional loneliness, it is isolating ambition, it is all these things that without someone who's actually been in your shoes and gives a shit about the human side, not just the numbers, you're always going to have to kind of compensate for that yourself. And so my advice is always be on the lookout for an ambition partner. I would not, go into a LinkedIn feed or an Instagram feed and get an ad from a coach and say, oh, this person's going to be emotionally available. That is not how this happens. It happens organically. It happens from word of mouth. It happens from, honestly, bumping into somebody and starting a conversation. It is so freaking rare. But that's why your eyes and your ears always need to be open for this type of person. So much of why it feels hollow is because it is lonely, right? You get to the top and you feel like you're the only one there, right? And so you combine all three of these points where, and let's start in reverse, is that you're already freaking lonely, right? And so then you kind of try and seek solace with other people, but those people don't understand you because they're growing old, not growing up. They stay at one level while you're trying to get to another one. And so then you go externally and you're seeking, hey, who's going to understand me from social media? Like, my God, we're so desperate for this kind of thing where we can just have a space where we trust somebody who we know understands the deal. So that is not easy to find, but it is so freaking vital. No one's forcing you to have a business. No one's forcing you to be successful. No one's forcing you to go to the next level. You want those things. They're instinctual. They're innate, whatever the word is. They are those things to you. You cannot actually describe what motivates you to do it because your instinct tells you to do it. It is so much less fulfilling when it's not fun. And it's usually not fun because you're like, am I the only one who gives a shit? So if you can find somebody who gives a shit, it's freaking magic. Absolute magic. So let's end it there. If you are growing, the numbers are getting bigger, but your inside's feeling lower, more hollow, whatever, you feel more alone, isolated, whatever, there's reasons for that, right? It could be as simple as you're just in passive consumption rather than active consumption. It could be as simple as you're surrounded by people who are growing old but not growing up. Or it could be, and again, this is the rarest of things, you've just been doing it alone, that you are seeking this psychological, emotional safety in places that actually create psychological, emotional debt. And to counteract that, the best way I can say how, although incredibly hard to find, is getting an ambition partner, somebody who actually understands your ambition, probably has been where you're going or very close to, and gives a shit about the human side. So incredibly simple, excruciatingly difficult, but worth it, man. Absolutely worth it. So if you got value out of this, I would encourage you, go ahead, check out that GPT down below. If you feel like you're in the consumption camp and you just want to potentially get to ways that don't say just delete apps and put your phone in another room, there's other ways to actually use it to become active consumption and use social media for good to level you up. Go ahead and take advantage of that. It's down in the description below. If you want to find out more about what I do, down in the description below. Otherwise, I'm super grateful for you watching as long as you did. Hopefully you found it helpful. And if you want to stick around for more stuff like this, then obviously you can like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.